Is everybody ready?
We're ready.
Typical disgusting display.
Oh, tonight we got 'em. Goldie, the Sulk, and JC.
The typical disgusting display. And it starts right now.
Oh, welcome back to another episode of A Typical Disgusting Display, podcast for writers by writers who hate writing. Let's just jump into it this week. Well, first of all, we're getting some angry backlash over your Naked Gun in the top 5 action films.
Oh, really?
You know, so there have been a few emails popping up about that. Just if you wanted a follow-up statement about why you did that.
My follow-up statement about the angry reaction is, fuck you.
First joke of the day. First joke of the day.
Well said. The rebuttal from the debate master. Go fuck yourself. Well, but speaking of anger, we talk about this from time to time on the podcast. Goldie's anger, my anger. And we all remember, you know, I was within the Chernobyl, we're still within the Chernobyl blast zone of my 50th birthday party.
Chernobyl?
Chernobyl. Sunny and Chur?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, finally
does a bird chirp or does it chirp?
Finally, I get a word wrong, and you're right there on the
Are you
wall.
going to have some potato chips after the podcast?
Oh, that chip has sailed. Anyway, so you got me angry. You got me started. Okay, so
Well, now you're even angrier.
yeah. So it's well documented on this podcast. I have issues with anger. I'm in therapy. I'm in group therapy, individual therapy, which I'm loving, by the way. Cool. And I've come to realize that much in the way that you watch a toddler or an infant trying to walk or a child trying to ride a bike, that's kind of how I am with expressing my anger. Like I'm so unpracticed at it that it is like watching a child get angry or trying to do something, struggling and failing. So it's awkward, and it's something that obviously I need to have more practice with. I think for years I had been sort of under this theory that if I just avoid it or breathe through it or ignore it or tell myself, oh, don't be mad, like that's the way to go. Obviously, that does not work. Right. It just needs to come out in a more effective way. So with that as a backdrop, and obviously the focus here is on my relationship with Tal, because she is the one who, you know, unfairly will bear the brunt of it when it kind of explodes out of me in very inappropriate ways. So there's this notion, and I'm sure we've all heard it, and I think, JC, you're living it. So there's this notion of like, you want your partner to be your best friend. Mm-hmm. You want to be living with your best friend. You want to be... No. You're already saying no to this. So
I want my wife to be my wife and my best friend to be my best friend. Those are two different things.
Okay, that's fair.
In my mind.
Oh, well, listen to this.
Okay.
And then make your decision. You'll probably make the same decision. So instantly, when I've been thinking about this more lately, because I do actually want exactly that. Like I want to consider Tal my best friend, and I feel like I fail at that, you know, at different moments. Like I'm coming up short on that, and that's, you know, it's not her fault. It's just kind of like because I'm unable to process these emotions. So I think about my best friends. I think about Goldie right here. I think about John Viner. I think about, you know, Todd Kidder, and how do what's my interaction with them? And then, of course, I take it to the next level of like, oh, God, you know, if I were sort of rooming with them, like things would be easier. But then I think like, yeah, but if I was raising a kid with Todd Kidder, or, you know, dividing up my house chores with Goldie, it would lead to the same kinds of anger and conflict that comes up now with Tal.
What a a weird left turn.
So
Crazy.
no, I'm just saying, like,
Right.
you if you want your wife to be your best friend, you think about your best friends and
As your
like,
wife?
how do I interact with them? Like, what's different?
Yeah.
So one very easy
Should we start
thing.
sharing a shopping list? We
Wait,
could just start slow.
Do you mean chairing a chopping list? I don't understand what you're saying. So anyway, so I'm taking this thought further and I'm like, okay, obviously there are some differences and it doesn't quite all line up, but what's a simple thing that maybe I can do to help, refocus my relationship with Tal as a best friend? And the one thing I thought of right away is, so now I will talk to Tal and like, when I talk to her, I'll just say like, no, I don't want to do that, dude. Like I just start throwing in dude and bro and like
Okay.
and like the sentences. And so the first time I did it, Tal was like, "What are you saying?" And I explained it to her. I was like, wife is best friend, so I want to start talking to you like a friend. To her credit, she instantly found that delightful, leapt on that, and now is like talking to me back in the same kind of way. And we've been doing this now for like a week, and the change has been night and day. Like, it's crazy how much lighter everything is when we're communicating. And now I'm not going to roll off or after sex and say, thanks, dude. But like,
Roll off.
yeah. So but I'm saying this weird little simple hack has created an entirely new atmosphere in our home. So I'm
Yeah.
throwing that out there as a tiny, small piece. If anyone else out there is struggling and they're
Yeah.
looking for some kind of shakeup,
Yeah.
Call your
Try
wife,
this.
dude.
call your
Bro.
wife, dude. I'm telling you, it absolutely so far has worked like a
Do
charm.
you have any female friends? That I know.
Well, I
shit.
mean, I have you. You're my friend, dude.
Yeah, dude. I was just wondering because I remember when Stu and I first started dating, we were friends first, right?
Right.
But my expectation of my boyfriends versus my guy friends are so extreme. So like once we went
Extremely
over,
different.
Oh yeah, once
Yeah.
he became my boyfriend, it was like the expectation went from no expectation to the highest of expectations. So I was
Right.
constantly disappointed, which was my own doing. He never changed. It was me. But then, because I kind of went through the whole thing that you're going through, but for me, it was like, how do we get back to being best friends? So I had to remember what it was like how do I treat my best friends? What are my expectations? And
Yes.
why can't I blend them somewhat?
Yes.
So I
That's
feel like
very
you
well
saying
said.
dude is your version of lowering the expectation on yourself as well.
And for whatever it is, it has decreased the pressure in an incredible amount. So Goldie, do you want to start?
Oh,
calling
it's funny.
Steph
I think
dude,
I'm already
bro?
doing a version of that without knowing it, which was that I would say maybe 70% of whatever Steph and I say to each other, the other person just goes, shit, bitch. And we get on with our life. Like, it's like, oh, she didn't eat her dinner. It's like, shit, bitch. and so
You're there already. You're making fun of me.
So awesome.
No, but I did it so much to the point that 2 weeks ago at work, another writer said something to me like, oh, it's time to go in the room. And I go, shit, bitch. And then I was like, oh, fuck. I'm so sorry. Like, you're not allowed to say that at work to a female coworker.
Oh my god!
And it was in front of like
great.
4 people. And I was like, what have I done? But she was fortunately cool about it and thought it was funny. But I mean, look, I think Steph and I the other day were talking about we've been together 15 years or something, which seems insanely long. And it's been every form of good and every form of bad. And like the thing that makes it sort of interesting is that it keeps going, and where is it going to go next? So, this could be the 5 years where you call each other dude. And
I'm here for it.
That's what it'll be. But it's interesting hearing JC's take on it. Is I wanted to talk a little bit this week about how I really feel we named this podcast wrong, and it should have been called Back to Zero, which is something that we're always trying to get to, which is you're trying to get the spark from when you first met and return to that, right? And like with my own life and some of what I outlined last week, like I was flailing just to get back on my feet. And this week, I don't want to do this every week, but it kind of continued where there was a giant gas leak at our house.
Oh, yeah.
So the gas company had to come shut it off. So we had no hot water, couldn't bathe, couldn't wash clothes, couldn't cook, still had the kids going. And I talked about my kid being sick last week. Like I had to pick her up from school on Friday because she said, I blew up a balloon too hard and I broke my jaw, which it's like, that didn't happen. But so I've just been scrambling. I've been filthy. It's my kid's birthday.
Right.
Aww.
She's 7. So we're trying to make all this happen where we stink. We have piles of dishes everywhere. The oven's pulled out of the wall. And I'm just trying to get back to the point where I can take a shower. And then like the ice in the refrigerator coincidentally breaks. So I love ice. So I can't get heat. I can't get cold.
Oh, shit.
It is essentially like, 32 AD in my house. Like I'm just at the whim of the
Nature.
temperature. Like I couldn't do anything. And so this morning I was out in the rain walking the dog, which is another thing. And he finally shit. And I'm trying to gather the shit. And because it's raining, like as I'm gripping the pieces of shit, it's falling apart even more. And the harder I try to get more shit, the more it's breaking apart. And it's like, but when I'm done, all I have is a shit in a bag. And this is life. Like, this is like, the more you try to work on every area, the harder it is to get back to zero, which is this formed shit that you just wanted to pick up in one piece. And then, speaking of calling your wife dude, every morning as I'm walking back to the house, Steph drives by me driving the kids to school. So we have a funny moment where we wave or whatever. And then this morning I was out in the rain and I stood holding the bag of shit above my head in triumph as she drove by. But I do think it's we're all trying to, and then back to zero, literally as you approach death, you're going towards zero. And I just think there's this profound thing where we're always trying to get back to something that was, but forgetting that when we were in that moment, we were also discontent about something else. So the only thing that helps is, I think, realizing that even this thing that we are now lionizing is the way to be was a period of discontent. So if we can project into the future, looking back, the moment we're experiencing now will likely be looked upon as something where we wished we hadn't let the discontent take control because it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
Oh, God,
totally.
That's a depressing and accurate analysis.
Well, I think it should be uplifting
gross,
because it's just like, hey, whatever this is it's fine.
Yeah, but see, that's how I spent most of my life trying to get to. Like, it's fine, but that's just not working for me.
Well, also, I think you're working on this, but the whole idea of anger, for you, the meaning of anger must have a very specific meaning. Like if you're angry, that means this. And that's why you're not letting yourself be angry. So whatever that this is the thing that you should identify.
Oh, God, how dare you say that?
I'm
angry about that.
Is it the dad leaving home, meaning that any anger is permanent change of the family structure deep down to the child?
That's interesting. We talk about that in therapy. We're on that, and it's funny. And my dad listens to this podcast every week. Thank you, Dad, for doing that. And my dad loves my new therapist because my therapist has totally identified my mom's side of the family as the problem. He's just like every week he's just like, people get divorced, but then your mom and your grandfather did this, and they didn't let you do this, and you couldn't express yourself, and you could only be happy, and you could only do this. And so a lot of the focus is like dad's off the hot seat.
Ooh,
right.
For sure.
I like that. I like any dad being off the hot seat.
Yeah,
I just know where my kids are headed, where it's like when my kid broke her wrist, she fell off a a jungle gym thing, and my reaction in the moment was like, what the fuck? Because I just couldn't believe that I was now in a situation where I had to go to the hospital, whatever. And she turned out to be ultimately fine. But man, it is so hard. I mean, it's so hard to be, to judge your parents when you're a parent, and you just go, I don't know that I'm even doing as good a job,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but just really quickly, maybe your therapist is right. Whatever your interpretation of what you being angry means, it's like it's rooted in that core belief of, if I'm angry, this isn't just an example. If I'm angry, that means I'm a bad person.
Yes.
And you have been avoiding being this bad person, that you've denied yourself the ability to be who you are or your natural reactions are.
Oh,
which is an angry asshole.
That's right.
Which is okay,
If I
because it's
could
not
just be
permanent.
comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's not a
we'd be all
permanent
set.
place.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Thanks for talking me through that, guys. Something
Well,
else.
I got something that'll lighten your load.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, Johnny jokes. I thought.
Oh, shit. All right, let's get in to Johnny jokes.
Whoa! From the tropical rainforest of Los Angeles, here's Johnny's.
Oh, yes. Oh, God. Like a Pavlovian dog with that theme. You get the soft intro here of our guest, the soft intro. We're so excited to have Sean Clements here. And he has agreed to do Johnny jokes with us. So
Yes.
we're very excited for that. So, Sean, why don't you take it away?
Well, let me set the stage a little bit first, guys, just because I'm a fan of the show. I know this is a soft intro, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but I'm a disgusty. I've been listening from the beginning, and
You're awesome.
I love the Johnny jokes. It's admirable. You two are so skilled at it, and you complain every week about
you don't
having
listen.
to write it. and sometimes I thought, what are these guys complaining about? It's just a couple monologue jokes. But then when I got the text from JC, do you want to do Johnny jokes? I was paralyzed.
It took you a minute to even reply.
2 full days I didn't respond. Didn't sleep a wink. Tossing and turning, wrestling. Can I do Johnny jokes? And I finally decided, look, this is advice for writers. We're teaching young writers. It's an educational service you provide, and you got to do things that scare you.
Yes.
Very
You
good
got to
advice.
be bold. You got to learn new skills. So, no, I never worked for a late night show. You've had a lot of reps, but let me get in there.
So you wrote some jokes.
So I have one joke.
You what? Wait, you have
Wait,
you have one?
let's redo the intro, Goldie. Johnny joke.
Here's Johnny.
I have a Johnny joke, but what's the issue, Goldie?
Well, here's the thing, and I want to step back a little bit and give a little more context to our listeners, is because you and I have a relationship, and it's a mentor-mentee relationship that has flipped numerous times. It's unclear who the mentor is, and it's unclear who the mentee is. I don't think either one of us knows. So, what you view as an assignment to write Johnny jokes, I viewed as an opportunity that we're giving Sean a forum to reach our audience of executives, our audience of writers, and display his lightning quick wit.
Yes.
To the likes of some of our prominent guests who have come on. So you've disregarded that. You've disrespected that already. But the second thing is, I think you're underselling to our audience. You called me last night. I think you were crying. It was hard to tell because you have 2 kids. I don't know if it's you or them. And you're saying, I don't know if I can do it. I'm not sure I can do it. And separately, and I didn't want to tell you this, I got a few texts from your wife that were like, hey, I know you, I know we don't really text, but I'm really worried about Sean. And, I said, I don't think he's going to harm himself or you, but I understand the pressure he thinks he's under. But was last night okay in your house? You got back to bed? I mean, she said, I've never seen him like this.
It's true. Yeah. It got pretty dark. I didn't know, obviously, she was texting you, but she was on her phone a lot. I think she texted a lot of people about what was happening.
It was a wellness
internally.
check. Like, she asked me if I could come over and perform a wellness check. And I said, from what you're telling me, he's unwell. I don't know why I need to drive over there to wellness check someone we know is unwell.
I can check that from here, yeah.
Right, that seems like could you, secretly point your camera at him and I could just do the wellness check and say he's unwell.
And when you say it got pretty dark, was that around 7 p.m.? Because that might just be normal.
Okay, I didn't even consider that.
Okay, just think
honestly,
about that.
time has no meaning for me when I'm in that mode. When I go into the cave of Johnny joke writing.
Well,
I'm no longer aware.
I think
of,
with that context, we're ready to set it up and say to our audience, okay, guys, here comes Sean's joke, and it's probably the greatest joke we've ever heard.
Yeah, Johnny,
No
it's a Johnny joke. And I know you're disappointed I only wrote one, but sometimes you take
let's
that
hear it.
first pitch over the fence.
There we go.
Sometimes.
I love that attitude.
It's true.
I love it.
And so, and I will not be doing an impression.
Oh, for fuck's sake. This is the mighty
Let's
Casey
set
at
a
the
limit.
bat. All right, go ahead.
All right. A high-tech Swiss train, formerly known as the Golden Pass Express, had its name changed this week to honor famed country singer Shania Twain. The train's new name? Shania Choo Choo.
You subverted our expectations.
Oh, that's good.
That was good. I
job.
can't complain about that. And boy, you know what I realized, Goldie, with it's kind of good doing one in a way, because in a way, I feel like we can hide really shitty ones by doing 4.
Well, you
know,
can.
like-
You do 5
Yeah,
a lot.
exactly. No, you've never had to hide one. But I can definitely, as you'll see in these 4 coming up, you just bury one shitty one and keep moving and let people's sort of
Let's see.
jaws drop. What do you
Hey,
mean?
let's-
see.
let's
Don't
cut-
give me the let's see treatment. That's for Sean. Here we go.
Go ahead,
Let's
do
get
your
it.
guess.
Let's show him how it's
Here we
not.
go. Yeah.
I'll show him how it's not done.
Oh, master.
After a push for sweeping wage equality legislation, President Biden says he hopes that America will hold the same opportunity for his daughters that it has for his sons. An update, Republicans have seized Biden's daughter's laptop. Thank you, Goldie.
That is good.
Thank you. And some birthday news. Bruce Willis celebrated his 68th birthday, one that relatives are calling bittersweet after his dementia diagnosis. On the plus side, he no longer remembers Hudson Hawk.
Boy, you
Hudson
are heartless.
Hawk.
What happened to you?
Speaking of birthdays, moving right on. See what I did? Moving right. Speaking of birthdays, Barron Trump celebrated his 16th birthday last week. And like most teen boys, he spent the evening under the bleachers, desperately trying to get a cute girl to play with his subpoenas.
Oh.
He's got his subpoenas with him because his father's in trouble. And now I'm going to end like Goldie on a norm.
All right.
In just 2 months, ChatGPT has gone from a 10% chance of passing the bar exam to a 90% chance of passing the bar exam. Baffled scientists have come to only one conclusion. ChatGPT has converted to Judaism. Take it away, Goldie.
Those
for
were
the
good.
love
Yeah.
of Christ.
Except, Bruce Willis. I didn't know you were such a fan of punching down.
Okay, here comes the bald community steps up.
Here we go. Well, France is engulfed in protests after French workers got enraged when the retirement age was raised from 62 to 64. The protests are scheduled between 11 and 11:15 a.m. Mondays and Thursdays with rest breaks from 11:05 to 11:10.
Lazy people.
Lazy workers. Okay. Well, you talked about it earlier, but AI, artificial intelligence, has come up with a cancer cure in just 30 days. Yeah. Unfortunately, they don't take your insurance.
Oh, bummer.
Got him.
Los Angeles Metro riders are reporting drug overdoses and masturbators on the train. But don't worry, that's just Ezra Miller and Les Moonves getting a jump on the workday.
Oh, God. That was good. Two good names.
And in other celebrity news, 92-year-old Rupert Murdoch is engaged to be married. Bride-to-be Anne Leslie Smith has reportedly already purchased lingerie in anticipation of her wedding nightmare. And finally, a new bill in Florida would ban any discussion of menstruation in the classroom. Yeah, they're so serious about it, they're teaching that every sentence ends with a penis.
No.
And once again, love the
Wow.
pronunciation. Menstruation. No wasted letters. No wasted letters there.
None at all, my friend.
All right,
great.
Goldie, this he's your friend. Why don't
Yeah.
you let us know who we're talking to today? He's your friend.
And our friend.
So, when I met this guy, really didn't like him.
Very common.
How is that
And the
possible?
reason I didn't like him was because I instantly realized he was very much funnier than I am. I was very jealous and concerned, had a sense of my own fraudulence. One of the, if not the funniest writer I've ever met. I'm proud to call him, I think, good friend. You never know with him. You never know what he's actually thinking. And it's someone who I know, who I haven't introduced to you, Alec, because as I told you earlier, I tend to keep my friends siloed because I find when they meet, I get cut out of the equation almost
Yeah, that
instantly,
makes
and
sense.
they don't need me anymore. But welcome, Sean Clements.
Welcome.
Yes. All right, Sean, I guess you've worked on nothing. All right, nice to meet you.
No, well, we're about to go. So Sean has done a lot, and the first thing I want to do is Sean has a very popular podcast called Hollywood Handbook.
What's that like?
It's far more popular than this one, and it's an insider's.
But you've got power listeners.
Yeah,
No.
but you have listeners.
Yes, actual listeners.
But for those who are uninitiated, and for those like me who are fans and initiated, what is your podcast?
I don't know.
I don't either. I've been on it twice, and I didn't know what was happening. Were you making fun of me? Was I making fun of me?
I wasn't. Everyone pretty much finishes the show and goes like, "Is that what you wanted? Is it supposed to be like that?" It's not as popular as you're making it out to be, and part of the reason is when people ask me what the show is, I go like, "Well, originally, it was sort of this Hayes and I, my friend Hayes, who hosts it with me." We're pretending to be like Hollywood insider big shots and kind of giving fake industry advice. Then it just became us growing pettier and pettier about how every other podcast was more popular than we are.
That sounds
And like
familiar.
complaining about that.
Yeah.
And then now it's almost come all the way back around to like us torturing the guest by like basically like reading their own interviews back to them and telling them what they should have said instead.
Well, it's so funny. It really is funny, and I congratulate you and Hayes on it because it was like when Goldie first told me about it, well over a year ago, and I checked it out. I felt, as I was telling Goldie earlier, I felt like a model who suddenly realized I was wearing last year's fashions, and listening to it, I felt so old because I could hear it echoing in my mind, almost like a guy from the 1950s. I was saying to myself, "Oh, they're doing a bit. They're doing a bit." I'm like, "Hey, Helen, get over to the radio. These two are doing a bit." But the bit is so great, and when I listen to it. And I've listened to many more since, and I listened to more last night. And I had a thought of because I love how you guys just start like you're in the middle of some conversation about, something that you're working on. So I thought maybe if you three would indulge me, that I could just start in the middle of a bit. So I've got this thing. So far I've got, so Paul Blart's back. And this time, his apprentice is none other than Kyle Rittenhouse. And so there's a lot of, "Sir, do you have your receipt?" Kyle, no. And then, I have another scene where Paul has to give mouth to mouth to a guy who's been shot through by Kyle. And, he's got to actually get his lips on the other guy's lips. But
Well, instantly, I'm going to jump the gun. And I have some, the Act 2 epic journey is that something happens to end Act 1.
Yeah.
The mall's in lockdown. Kyle needs his gun, but Paul Blart has to drive him back across state lines to his mom's place to go get the gun. And that can be an epic road trip.
I love this.
Ooh, road trip.
I love this. I'm already feeling better about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something. I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Sean
anything?
does. Based on
No,
his-
I love it, and I'm just like, I get to sit back and just watch the show. I'm always doing the show, but here's this great opportunity that I have to be the guest, who's a little uncomfortable.
That should be
doesn't
your
know
last-
if he's being made fun of, right?
Your final episode is you guys are the guests on your own show.
Oh, that would be great.
Oh,
That's how
wow.
you should wrap it. But how did you? So you and Hayes, we're going to go back in your improv background and stuff. But you and Hayes, how did you start a podcast together? Because you weren't improving together, right?
No. We met writing for a TV show called Alan Gregory.
Yeah.
Hold your applause.
David Goodman. David Goodman.
David Goodman ran it, but Hayes and I were both staff writers on that. And then I really liked Hayes, and we got along well in the room, but he is a horrible communicator. He's impossible to keep in touch with, doesn't answer texts. So I sort of was like, well, if we do a podcast together, he'll have to talk to me because we'll see each other every week to record. So this is how I'll keep him as my friend. But then unfortunately I ended up tying up a lot of my business with someone who doesn't answer texts or emails. So there's a give and take there. But
Because you were the first person I knew who had a podcast. Because when we were at Making History, you had a podcast, right? You had it back then, didn't you?
yeah. No, we've been doing
and Karen
it. Yeah,
Kilgariff
for-
had her very popular podcast. Although, but
Oh,
in
yeah.
my mind, I was like, oh, they're dicking around with these podcasts, And meanwhile, she's like a gajillionaire from it, and you've been very
Yeah.
successful with it more than the show. But I was like, we all know I'm in charge here with the TV show.
You've got a podcast. I've got a TV show. Order/to9.
I'm your boss. It's like,
Why do
cut
you
to-
think? Why do you think
I've
Hayes?
got a third of a season.
Why do you think Hayes has trouble texting? Because for those of you who don't know, so his name is Hayes. His name is like Hayes Washington Wales Davenport or something incredibly waspy.
Hayes Hamilton Davenport.
Oh, that's
is the
right.
name.
That's right. So he wrote for Family Guy and the Cleveland Show. That's how in Goldie you
not
worked
the
with him.
Cleveland show.
Not the
Not the
Cleveland,
Cleveland
show,
show.
just Family
Family
Guy.
Guy.
He was on the grinder with us for a week. He somehow had a deal where his deal was his contract said just waltz in whenever.
Whatever you want, man.
What a contract.
Yes. If you deign to grace us with your presence in the room.
Well, so I picture someone like that. They don't text. Everything's like an ink pot and a feather quill and stuff like. Is that what it is?
That might be part of it. I accused him. I recently learned the factoid because he's a history buff, and I learned that I guess Napoleon wouldn't answer his letters for 2 weeks because he was like, "Well, if they hit me up again in 2 weeks, it was important enough to respond to, and if I never hear about it, it means that it didn't matter, and I was correct to not respond." And so I texted Hayes to be like, "Did you learn this fact at a very impressionable age?" And go like, "I'm kind of like Napoleon."
I'm glad you cleared that up though, because honestly, I have texted him once or twice over the years, and he didn't return it, and I was like very insulted and angry.
A lot of people, yes.
can
I've
understand.
told him because I love Hayes and he's brilliant.
I just had a
funny,
great
sweet
conversation
guy,
with him the other night. I ran into him. Yeah.
the best guy. And he's actually gotten better about this. So I feel bad that I'm like trashing him on the podcast because he has
He won't,
improved
he
a
won't
lot.
listen. He won't listen.
Yeah.
That's true. But I have told him like this is your worst quality as a friend, and it is so bad that it sometimes outweighs everything else that I like about you because it is so frustrating. But I don't know. He's a parent now. Maybe it'll change.
Maybe he'll
him?
start
Well,
responding.
I got to say about your podcast that I used to listen to it when I worked out. That was sort of the time I would set aside for it, and then
That's
I
what
had
it's
to
for.
I had to stop. One day I was laughing so hard I almost dropped a giant weight on my own head. Like I really almost died because of your podcast.
Wow.
The ultimate compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
so
real.
it's like
I've seen Goldie's, what are they called? Turkish get-ups? I've seen
with the
them.
kettlebell.
It's
yeah.
pretty impressive. And it also, I had that thought too of like, Goldie, please don't kill yourself doing this.
That'd
That's
be
scary,
fun.
very scary.
But I want to talk to you, Sean, about because I want to go back a little bit to how you got into comedy, because this always was pretty fascinating to me. I don't know how much you want to talk about, but where your life was and what you were doing when you got into improv, I believe was your first.
Yeah.
UCB.
I started out doing like, UCB.
And you're our first guest, I think, who started out in the more modern way of improv in UCB. I think everyone else is older and sort of like, did the Billy Joel song "My Life."
Yeah, and it gives him a stand-up routine in L.A. Yeah, I think actually Heidi Gardner is the same way, right? JC,
Right.
She was.
Yes.
She did that. But you're exactly
Groundlings.
like Heidi Gardner. So many
Yeah, we're
comps
very
there.
similar.
But
yeah,
so you're
we're
in
circling each other.
Connecticut and you're in college or something, right? And
Yeah,
walk
so I
us
went
through a
to
little bit.
one semester of college, a school called Drew University. I went there partially because I was like, I want to do acting and writing and theater stuff is like what I was interested in. And there was only one person I had ever met who was doing that, which is my neighbor was James Vanderbeek of Dawson's Creek.
Oh yes.
So
And he
so
went
the-
to Drew.
So the Beak had gone to Drew. The Beak went to, and he went, I think he only went for maybe a year or two, and then he was like going into New York and auditioning, but it was like a $5 train ride into the city. There was like a train right next to the college. And so I was like, oh, cool. You can go to New York and like start to like see shows or maybe audition if you get it going. And it had a good theater program, and they gave me a little money to play tennis. But I went,
Whoa, nice.
and then immediately flamed out, had substance abuse issues, had like drug and alcohol stuff. So didn't go to class, only went to my acting classes, totally ignored everything else. Then went home.
Would you be sober for those, or would you be like?
No.
trash?
I was like, I was insane. Like I was psychotic, I was like awake for 3 days, then would sleep for a full day.
Right.
And so to interact with me at any time, I lost like 40 pounds. Like it was pretty.
But were you the
grim.
same guy I know now? Were you funny and cutting and stuff, or were you like life of the party, lampshade on your head guy, or were you kind of like jock tennis wunderkind who everyone thought was tormented? Like, what was the perception of you, if you're aware at all?
I think I was probably more the first thing you said of being like cutting and kind of like just like a sardonically irreverent lad.
Because I can't picture you as making, like I can picture you as getting drunk and making fun of one person so much that everyone else was laughing, but a lot out of fear that they would be
Then
next.
it would be them instead.
Or
yeah,
if they
they weren't
stopped.
laughing, I'd be like, oh,
Yeah, if they stopped, then your attention would go somewhere else, and it might be them.
yes, I was a mean comedy predator. I think that's what you're describing.
Yeah.
Where it's like any movement then invokes like you
You're
become
right.
the target of
Any heat signature.
my funny jokes.
Where is Drew?
It's in Madison, New Jersey.
Oh, okay. So not Connecticut. You grew up in Connecticut.
I grew up in Connecticut, and then I went to school in New Jersey. And then I moved home to Connecticut. And I think also like when I dropped out, I had a little bit of like, whatever, man, I don't need a fucking piece of paper to be an artist. and then I was like, I worked at a dry cleaner for 4 years. Just did that. I started like cleaning cooling towers. Like I was just like working like really jobs that had nothing to do with.
Were you
where
still
I
kind of
wanted
like
to go.
drinking and drugging at your parents' house, or were you clean
Yes,
at that
yes.
point?
I was drinking and drugging at my parents' house, and put them through hell, and they would be like, okay, we gotta kick him out, and then they'd be like, okay, we gotta help him.
Right.
So
But the dry cleaner, they never noticed.
the dry cleaner. So I was a mess there, and like whatever, I would call them on a Saturday. It'd be like, and tell them some insane story about why I couldn't come to work. They'd be like, "No, you have to come to work." So then I would show up, and I would be like on cocaine and like bleeding or something. And just like I put on like insanely loud music, like Neutral Milk Hotel, like just blasting, just people coming in being like, "What the fuck is happening here?" I fell asleep in the back at one point. Some guy came back and woke me up, and he's like, "I already got my clothes and everything." Just like you can't burn the candle at both ends, buddy. There was a Subway next door that I was friends with the manager, and I would go in and get like a cup half full of Mountain Dew and like pour vodka in it. I was just like getting fucked up at work.
The dream.
But they didn't want to train someone else. Like I think that was so much of it. Like they were all so lazy, and we're like, well, he mostly does it. We got to hire someone new. We got to teach him the whole tag system. So they let me work there. Then I quit. Or no, I guess I was fired. I just sort of stopped going. And then I got clean at one point, and I came back. Here's a little, just like maybe a nice story. I came back, and while I was there, at one point they came to me and they were like, "The drawer has been off. Money has been missing from the drawer." And I was like, "Oh my God, we got to get to the bottom of it." I, of course, was stealing. Had been stealing for quite some time, and no one had noticed.
So suddenly you're leading the investigation.
Yeah, it's The Departed.
Yeah. I was like, Jesus, well, I close the store every night. I haven't seen anyone come in and out. Let's check the cameras. Who is it? It's not you guys, is it?
Who's stealing? The family or the one guy who isn't us?
So I went back after like getting clean and like having, nothing going on, and was like, "Hey guys, I would like to work here again." And they hired me back immediately. They were like, "Great, yes, we still don't want to teach anyone else the job." Yeah. I mean, I did okay. So then I start working there again, and then I started going through my like process of sobriety and got to like an amends point in my life where I was doing a 12-step program, and I went and I was like, "Guys, one of the factors of amends is financial amends," and I was like, "I stole from you over a long period of time. Like I'm why the drawer was off," and I sort of like calculated like this is how much I think I owe you, and you can fire me. It will, which I would understand. It will take me a long time to pay you back because I will have to go and get another job. Or, whatever, if you want to like garnish my paycheck or something as we're going through this process, like I will show up, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And by the way, here's how I stole. If you ever want to like look out for the signs in the future.
Right.
So they were like, "Okay, you can keep working here." And I was like, and I had whatever amount I had like $320 in my pocket. And so I was like, "Here's $300." And I took the 20 and I went and like bought lunch and a pack of cigarettes and a $3 scratch off ticket. And I did the scratch off ticket that night, and I won $1,000.
Oh my God. Oh.
And so then I was like, and of course, immediately I was like, I don't want to give them this money. I can't believe I just won $1,000. But then I was like, oh no, this is like pretty much what I owe them. And so then I went and gave it to them the next day. So,
Wow.
Wow, how lucky.
Yeah.
it was
That's
crazy.
incredible.
Yeah.
But, ended up being a very good symbol for me if I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And so then your path eventually takes you to UCB. Was that UCB
Yes.
in New York or LA?
Yeah, so it was in New York. So I was working odd jobs, and I was starting to kind of get my life together. And I had a friend who I had gone to high school with, who we did plays together, and he was like, "I'm taking classes at UCB," and I was a fan of their show on Comedy Central, and he was like, "It's cool, like Matt Walsh has walked through the class before," and I was like, "Oh my God!" he was looking for his keys. So then,
Right. Household name,
So-
Matt Walsh.
this coincided, and as most people's, I'm sure you've had a lot of guests whose comedy stories are similar. this coincided with the famous gates at Central Park that Christo had put up, the art installation with the orange gates, which my mom and sister wanted to go see. So I was like, okay, well, let's all go to New York, and then like they'll go to the gates and I'll go watch my friend's UCB class show. And I had heard a lot of people say since that like they saw like an amazing improv show and it inspired them that like, wow, this can be so funny and great and spontaneous. I went to like a 101 class show at 4:30 in the afternoon. It was the worst shit. Like it was so bad. But I watched it and I went, well, I could do better than this. Like these people are getting some laughs, and I think I would kick their ass at this. And I had you. I mean, you mentioned like coming up through stand up. Like I had people a lot of times in my life be like, "You should do stand up. Like you're funny. You should do stand up." And my response, which however true it was like, I don't think that's how I'm funny. Like I've never written something like. I feel like I'm funny often in response to stuff. Like someone will say something and then I'll have like the right line to respond, was how I saw myself anyway. So when I saw long form improv, which I'd never seen before, I was like, oh, this is it. Like this is the vehicle for what I like to do, was how I felt. And so I started taking the Metro North train from New Haven into New York City for classes. I'll tell you another weird like fate story, which is I then did my 101 class show that my friend was at. We're about to go out and do the show, and the teacher comes back, and it's at 4:30 on like a Sunday afternoon. So
Somebody's
there's
been
only
stealing
like
from the drawer.
there's only like 5 people in the theater, and the improv teacher comes back and goes, why is Minnie Driver in the front row of my class show?
Whoa.
And one of the guys in the class was like, oh, my roommate is the guitar player in her band, and so we're friends. So she came. So I went out and I did this 101 class show, and it went fine. And I was walking out, and Minnie Driver grabbed me on the shoulder and was like, hey, you're going to keep doing this, right?
Wow.
And I was like, oh, yeah, I think I'm going to take the next class. And she was like, yeah, you really should. Wow. And so,
was there also a therapist telling you it's not your fault? It's not your fault. You're just burbling into their sweater.
But that's so nice of her.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Especially since that's the exact type of person I feel like you would slam.
In which way?
She had no idea. The second she left, I fucking destroyed her.
Mr. Ed just told me to keep going. Now, put a year on this. What year is this about?
This was like 2005.
Okay.
2004, 2005. Yeah, around there.
Excellent.
Anyway, I got into UCB through that and started doing improv and really enjoyed it. And then had this feeling of like, people should be putting me on stage and writing things for me, and no one was. So that I was like, okay, I'll start writing, and started writing sketches for myself, but got put on a house sketch team and then started writing for other people, and ended up through that getting more confident as a writer and really getting a better response to my writing than to my performing, if you could believe that. And then got the opportunity to submit to, there was a show, an MTV animated pop culture based sketch show
Celebrity
called
Deathmatch.
Popzilla.
Oh no!
It was called Popzilla. No, less famous than Celebrity. I would kill to be on Celebrity Deathmatch.
I got rejected from Celebrity Deathmatch. I wasn't good enough.
I think
for
I
it.
did too. I mean, I did for writing. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't. Well, I was so rejected, I didn't even get to submit. But this was somebody from UCB in LA was like one of the showrunners, so it just reached out to UCB in New York and was like, "Hey, sketch writers you have can submit." And so I submitted and got hired as a contributor. And it was like, you get, $50 if you sell them an idea. You sent them 20 ideas every week. And then I was selling the most ideas, and they called me and were like, do you want to come work here? Like in person, we're in LA. And I was like, yes. And they were like, okay, you have 6 days to like move across the country and start writing for this non-union MTV animated show. And it's week to week. There's like no guarantee of anything. But that got me moved out to LA.
Yeah.
So did you have money saved at that point from doing HVAC work, or like what did you have?
No. When I first moved to New York, well, one of my jobs was that while I was doing the cooling tower work, after I left the dry cleaner, I met a guy. I met a guy at a poker game, and I was making him laugh a lot. And he went like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "I work at a dry cleaner." And he was like, "How much do they pay you?" And I told him, and he was like, "I'll pay you twice as much to come work for me. I clean cooling towers."
Do it.
And I was like,
Done.
all right. So I was like, you got it. It was dangerous. It was like using these like industrial pressure washers that like if you accidentally shoot yourself, just like blood and water like shoots out of a hole in you. Like,
God.
it was a total nightmare. You got up at like 4 a.m., put on like a Tyvek suit and like these air masks because like you're cleaning like algae that has all this bacteria that carries Legionnaire's disease. But anyway, I did that. Then while I was doing that, I started, this is, I guess, similar to, because Heidi Gardner did like hair, right? She was a hairstylist.
Yeah, correct.
I was, my mother had heard an interview with John Corbett where he said that he was a hairstylist and that it was a great job for an actor because you have clients, you make your own schedule, you don't work like a 40-hour week.
Yeah.
And my mom suggested that I go check out the massage therapy school in Connecticut. There was like a nice, like accredited school. And so I went and I became a licensed massage therapist.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
I forgot
started-
about this.
I started working in spas and salons and stuff in Connecticut. And then as I was traveling into New York, and then when I moved to New York, I got a job there working for a company that like sent you out to different venues. So like I went on tour with Cirque du Soleil for a little bit where I'd work on the acrobats.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? I can't imagine a more stressful experience than getting a massage from you. Like, what was people's reaction? Like, your hand touching my back with your attitude, I would just instantly, like, freeze up.
I could turn it on, Goldie.
Like, what's it like if you're giving me a massage, like, walk me through. I walk in, I'm staying at the hotel or whatever. I go, hey. What
You walk in? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm the client.
Goldie, thanks so much for coming in today. Is there anything in particular that's bothering you today? Any areas you want me to focus on?
Yeah, my lower back is just
lower back
jammed. It's jammed.
Okay, great. All right, we're gonna figure that out. So I'm gonna step out of the room. Go ahead. Undress to your comfort level. Then I'm gonna ask you to get on the table face down. Put on the sheet. I'll knock on the door in a minute and come back in.
Wait, why didn't you say dick down?
Why is there so much mystery around it?
You have to say dick down. I want you to get on the table, dick down, and I will be back in. Yeah.
But yeah.
And like, do you like when
There's
you're
a little
giving a
crack
massage? And do you like when people make little noises to let you know, or no? Would you rather they're totally frozen and silent?
I'm in another world when I'm doing it. It has nothing to do with it.
Oh my God! How did we get?
I can't control your experience.
We got so far off track here. But I had an actual question about writing. If we can go back to that for a second.
Okay, I guess. You think your listeners will like that better than me simulating doing an ASMR spa experience
Go
for
gentle
Goldie.
on my stomach. I have a hiatal hernia, so when you get down there, be careful. When you talk about writing for an improv show, forgive my ignorance on this, what does that mean? Because in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, you come out there and somebody says Starbucks, and then you just go. So what does writing for something like UCB mean?
That's a failure in storytelling on my part, which is a theme in my career. So I started out doing improv and got put on like a house improv team. You never write for improv. Improv is exactly that. You come out, you get a suggestion, and then you do scenes based off it. And
so you don't, in your mind, you don't ever go into a preloaded bit, maybe?
No. As I did it more and more, there's sometimes where like whatever things that would recur. Like I did a show out here for like 10 years. We'd all been friends forever. And sometimes we'd stumble into something where it's like, okay, we're going to do this joke again. Or there's like some opportunity to do this same character. And it was sort of like more for us that we would do the same bit. And sometimes I would go out setting a goal for myself of like, okay, when I go in there, like I'm going to do less like writing in my head. I'm going to pick like a really strong emotional reaction to whatever the first thing that's said to me. Like I'm going to be like devastated by it or get angry. Right. And so I would have a preloaded like, this is something I want to work on basically, or like this is how I want to approach the scene tonight because I'm doing too much falling back and just kind of like being on my heels and like coming up with a clever line. So there's that, but I would never be like, tonight I'm going to reverse engineer a way to like do this kind of material.
Right.
Okay. So sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah. So the writing part, where does
but they
that
also it's a sketch and improv theater. So like when I was there would be sketch shows running, and then they started. I was on a what's called the Herald team, and then they started something called Mod teams, which was you would have a director and then I think 6 writers, and you put up a show every month. And so you had to bring in 2 sketches every week, and then your director would give you notes, and they would pick over the course of the month like 6 sketches that would be in the show that you put up. And so I'd write those and perform in those. And it was actually great. It was great training because you had to generate 2 sketches every week. Like you had to bring something in. There was like an authority figure giving you notes. Like if you didn't take the notes from your boss or whatever, you probably wouldn't get your sketch in the show. Even if you were like, I think it's funnier this way. It's like, but they're going to pick the running order. And you worked with other people and like would get, you would collaborate and get notes from other people in the group. And sometimes they were super funny and they would give you something good. And sometimes you would be dealing with a personality that you maybe would have preferred not to. But it actually wound up, I thought, being really good practice for a writer's room.
Yeah.
When I got into that scenario, I realized like, oh, I've sort of been doing this already.
Yeah. And so,
cool.
because I mean, I don't have to tell anyone on here this, but I was in a sketch group called the Morts in the 90s in New York. Hold your applause to the end. And, but we kind of dealt with this thing every time where there were 4 of us in the group, and myself and John Viner, who's not asked to be a part of this podcast, the 2 of us would basically write everything. And then we would watch the other 2 guys leaping and prancing around on stage and getting applause and roses thrown at their feet. And there was this feeling of like, well, fuck you. Like we wrote all that. I mean, I know we're all in this together, but fuck you. So did you ever have that kind of experience where it's like you're doing the writing and then Leaping Larry comes out on stage and does a little dance in the middle of your sketch and you're like, oh God.
Isn't that
100%. And I was a performer, but they were really encouraging me like you should write for other people too. Like you should learn that skill. You can't just write for yourself. And so there was, 1 month that I like wrote a sketch that went really well.
Right.
And then all I want to do is tell people that one was mine. Because like everyone's going up to the people who were in it like, gosh, that was so funny. And it was like, they didn't do anything. I did it. I know. And then I had written a monologue for myself like 2 months in a row that went fine. And then I wrote a monologue the following month and the director was like, you really should give this to another performer. And so I gave it to this guy who was a really good actor. And it crushed. And then unrelated, he came up to me like a week later and was like, so I have an SNL audition. I'm like going to stage for Lorne. And I was wondering if I could do your monologue like as part of the thing. And I was like, no.
Good for you.
Yeah, really.
It's mine.
Yeah.
Like I fucking wrote it for me.
Yeah.
And then he was very unhappy with me about it, and it was just like, well, I brought a bunch to that, and I was like, it didn't need it. It didn't need what you brought to it. Like, yes, when you did it, it was 7 minutes long. That's not the best version.
What are these monologues? Like you're getting on stage in a character and saying like, my mother doesn't think I'm gonna be anything.
I'll give you this monologue because I ended up doing this. This monologue went on a journey because I ended up doing it in a show that I did with Dom, when we went to Montreal Just for Laughs Festival.
Yeah. No big deal. No big
That's
deal.
right. But the premise of this monologue was I'm like a Friday Night Lights style coach. I'm Coach Taylor.
I love it already.
And I come out and I'm giving a speech and I'm like, guys, you know, we're down by an awful lot. The other team thinks we've lost it. The fans in the crowd don't think we can win this. Hell, our own goddamn cheerleaders don't think we can win it. Me? Maybe I'm crazy, but I think we got it. And to be honest, that's not the only reason I believe I may be crazy. And then I start going through all these things that have been happening to me, where it's like, and then it becomes like a pep talk, where it's like, you know, Goldie, my cereal told me not to play you in this game today. But if I listen to everything my cereal told me, I would have shot you in the chest point blank 6 months ago. So get on that field and win this thing.
Well, now, wait a minute now, because I'm sure your radar is up for this kind of stuff. But they did almost exactly that on SNL, probably after you wrote this monologue. Did you see that sketch with Will Forte in the halftime speech?
I don't know. I don't.
The specific words you're bringing up are not it.
There was a sketch later that was really, really similar, where it was like somebody being like, "I'm crazy in love with you," but then like all their expressions of romance were and my antenna was up because I did that in a sketch show. Then years later, after the first story I told you, another friend of mine had an opportunity to audition for SNL and was like, I'm working on my audition. And I was like, do this monologue. I just gave it to him because I was like, I'm not going to do it. I no longer have any fantasy of doing this. And he did it, and he got like flown out to New York and like ended up like it went really well. He didn't get on the show. But
that could have
so I
gotten you a
know
writing
that
job.
everyone there had seen it, but I kind of like poked around because I knew people worked on the show. And was like, did they take this idea? And I really don't think they did.
So why have
it's
you
not
never
the most original thing?
Why
in
have
the
you
world,
never gone down like the one-man show route for yourself?
I guess I'm a coward, Goldie.
It is scary.
That's what he's getting at.
That's all I wanted.
Well, Goldie, you didn't
I guess I don't have
even
the
hit him with your
stones.
Well, I did. I mean, well, my joke used to be that your improv group is just 6 people who don't have the guts to do stand-up when I would meet people.
Absolutely.
But I was also very jealous of it. When UCB came out, I was taking in a real 2-year acting program at William Esper Studios to become a theater actor. And I could have gone to UCB where the original 4 people were teaching, and I didn't have it was like $180 a month, and I was like, I want to be a real actor. In retrospect, one of the worst decisions I've ever made, because I could have gone to UCB, networked with comedy people, and maybe even been a performer. But I want to sidebar a second, because you gave me, I think it was one of, if not my favorite moments ever in a writing room.
Awesome.
It was the Making History Writers Room. It's a day we simply know as Modern Man. Now, Modern Man, to set the backdrop, is a horrible George Carlin bit from late in his career that he got up and he began a special, and he was old. And he was like, I'm a modern man. I got upsized and downvoted, and like he's trying to
give you a gigabyte in a nanosecond.
I
all
can hear it.
wordplay.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's all jargon. And so we would kind of, as a joke, if someone thought of one, you would say out loud, "I'm a modern man," you know, and you would, it
breaks your brain. You can't stop thinking like it. Like once you start doing these little clever reversals, where it's like, I go upstairs on the down elevator and I go downtown in an upscale car. Like, you just can't stop fucking doing it.
No, and it's yeah, and so we were not going to get any more work done, clearly, because we were all just riffing, but almost in silence, trying to riff. Like,
yes.
We weren't doing much riffing.
No
we were
one
all
was
just
thinking
kinda
about
like
the
staring
show.
at each other and thinking, and then doing ones that were 70% of the way there. But I realized, I said, if someone would go off, because we were saying, is this actual comedy and good, or would it be really kind of easy to do this if you decided to do it. And so Sean volunteered, if you give me 2 hours, I think I can come back with a modern man monologue. And
Oh my God.
God fucking damn it, no one recorded this because you came back and performed this hilarious, like 5-minute long chunk of Modern Man.
It was so long.
Do you have it still?
I remember it feeling long as I did, where it like started out going well, and then I was like, I think I did too much of that.
No, and it was, but it, to me, it, you know, there's so few times in a room where someone's called upon to actually do the job and write, and it wasn't the job because we should have been working on the show.
That's
but
why I
as a
was so
show of
passionate about
skill, it was like if you're on a football team and someone goes to the weight room and then just squats 700 pounds and just goes like, "See, you fuckers, like, if I want to do this,
Yes.
Yes.
I can fucking do it." And I just, you know, I've always just been so impressed by your brain and your ability to do that. And that was just an example of pure comedy for me, which was not
easy
which
to
in the end, the
impress
show got
Goldie.
canceled. We should have been doing the show. But like,
Thank you so much, Goldie. That's really nice, and I heard you talk about it on the episode where you talked about room bits, and I was really flattered to
Yes.
be in the
nice to put
in the
face.
annals with Mrs. Manicotti and
Oh,
the other
Yeah.
legendary room bits. And as you told it too, the mission statement was, you said, if somebody wants to actually write one of these, I'll give you basically the rest of the day off.
oh, okay.
Like you were, because we were like on a floor.
That's
And then
leadership.
our offices were downstairs. You were like, if somebody really wants to do it, just so we can like stop trying to do it. And I was like, I'm doing it. And we walked downstairs. But
great.
I leapt at the chance, but I really appreciate it. And
But has too much of your career been that?
been what?
Been
Doing
pure
room bits.
displays of comedy at your own expense, at the expense
For no one?
of doing
Yeah.
the compromised job.
Yeah, I had a boss when I worked at Workaholics, the showrunner Kevin Etten would be like, what you do in this room is so close to what your job is. It's almost imperceptible. Because I would always, like, we'd be stuck and I would just start pitching a story, like, in the most genuine, like, deadpan way, pitching a story that was a fake story that we wouldn't do, but it was just off. Like, it's like, wait a minute. What if the dudes get so high? It was just
Well, I would
room
submit
bits.
I would submit that, and Goldie, you've been on about this forever, and you're 100% right. It's like you talk often about the difference between some writers who are, you know, who will get hired and be part of a room, and then there are writers who come in and actually create tangible comedy for you to say, that was funny, this guy just thought that up. And I would submit that even though that was not for air on Making History and it was all just kind of a diversion, it's one of those moments where, and I know, Goldie, you hired Sean again, and you've worked with him and you speak very highly of him all the time. And it's that thing that a writer, a real comedy writer, needs to be able to do, is you need to be able to, when the rubber hits the road, make people laugh, come up with comedy, come up with your own thing. And so I think that this sidelight thing is kind of hand in hand with what it's all about, even though it seems like a waste of time. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Well, I
That's
think
what
what
she
Sean
said.
has is, and maybe because of the improv background, is that when you start riffing, when you do apply yourself, and I think you imagine yourself in the role of the characters, I've never seen anyone make the writer's assistant work harder to just keep up with like a full page or two of a scene that you're able to sort of inhabit both sides of, and almost, you know, see ahead like you like a chess expert in 2 or 3 moves ahead. Like, you seem to have a puzzle mind for comedy. Is that what's going on in your head, or are you just fucking riffing?
Thank you. No, yeah, I think that is some of the improv background did kind of make me feel like that is how I write, is I'm playing out the scene and I'm sort of like doing both sides of the scene in my head, and I've had a lot of practice at doing that. And if you go see good long form improv, and some people that's an oxymoron, I guess. But what is really good is when something that's funny or seems random in an early scene in the show can wrap back around to become meaningful. Like it's those, the callbacks that end up feeling organic, where it's like, oh God, they must have planned this out from the beginning. And I think that you do start to look for that stuff and practice creating those moments. So thank you. That's very nice. But yeah, that is, I think when I am writing, that's, I guess, the place where I'm most comfortable is like going through dialogue exchanges and being able to do that. That's why I would just always prefer to write a 2-person scene with no movement. Because I don't want to think about anything else.
Great point.
But very, very nice. Thank you so much for your compliments. May I compliment Goldie for a moment? Just because I'm on here and he's being so nice. Because you are it's very flattering, and you're saying, that you did not like me right away because you thought that I was so funny. But I do appreciate Goldie hiring me multiple times, as you mentioned.
Hey, I'm no idiot. If like I can exploit you ruthlessly, why wouldn't I do that?
But it's not, as a showrunner, like having worked for Goldie, it's like I do think of him as someone. And by the way, this podcast is a great venue for you because you are a joke machine, a true joke machine, like I have never seen. You generate jokes, like setup, punchline, jokes, and when we would do, episodes of the show, you would sit and just like dictate what it is, and it was joke after joke after joke, and you can make those in a way that like I am jealous of, and I was always very impressed by it. And you're good at all the pieces of it. You have a great mind, but I do think it's really, really impressive. And I love hearing you rant at the top of these shows because you come in, you have a take, often an insane take. And then because you were like a high school like debate star or something, you somehow, which is what great.
It's not debatable.
What great, I think, stand-up is often is like you say something that I disagree with, and then you manage to like bring me all the way around to be like, hey, wait, maybe this is how everything should work. This stupid thing Goldie just said.
He's a master at that.
That I was against.
I thank you for that. That's very kind. I think, I know you have a time constraint here, so we'll get you going. Having learned not enough about you and having totally not had you discuss the most interesting parts of your career, we'll have to have you back.
Absolutely.
But I do wonder if you and I are kindred spirits in a way, in that we write for a career, and then there's the pride of when the joke works, when we see it, the anger that it's not us out there, and then the quiet belief that it should be us out there, and this is a grand injustice that we're not getting the credit, and that they're not doing the words right.
Oh yeah,
is that accurate?
Yeah. So because I do think that when I am pitching stuff in a room, I mean I'll get false positives.
It's funnier than the show
because I'll sell it.
Right.
I think sometimes I perform it in a way where it's like, if you do it exactly like this, it will work. And then you have actors up there doing it, and you go, Sean, this scene doesn't work. Like we all thought this was funny in the room. And then I do quietly go like, yeah, that's right, because I should have been doing it. But I have to put that away. And you, at great personal cost, did put me in Making History. And I know it was a battle.
You were hilarious, though. But the thing is, had this been now, it wouldn't have been a battle, because writers are more accepted as performers now. It was the last wave of the ironclad separation, where they were like, no, you're a writer, so you can't be on the show. Now it's like, we got this great writer performer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So all the young people are benefiting from it, but you were
I
also
missed the boat.
Really
We're all
young
doing
people.
fine, gang.
You're 10 years behind us. You're doing fine. So before we let you go, what are you working on these days besides the hilarious Hollywood Handbook podcast?
So yes, we do that podcast. I'm currently writing for a Netflix show called Unstable.
Oh
that
yeah,
stars
with Rob Lowe.
Lowe
Yeah.
and Johnny Lowe,
Oh.
who Goldie met at the Grinder as well.
Oh yeah.
Nepo baby.
No, we like John Lowe.
No, but I mean that's the term, right?
It's yeah. We can't escape the term.
Goldie's saying, "Come on, come on." Yes, we. I'm not saying we don't like him. I'm just using that term that you like to say.
That's
all
my
the time.
boss. Hey, that 27-year-old kid is my boss. You watch your mouth, Sulkin. But that'll come out March 30th on Netflix. We're writing season 2, but it's pre-green light. So fingers crossed, everybody. If you believe in season 2, go ahead and clap for us.
Yes, all
and
right.
maybe it'll make Netflix pick us up. And I'm just gearing up. I'm trying to line up like what scab work I want to do during the strike.
As David Goodman, as you know him, and he was on one of the first guests on our podcast, and I texted him recently because he's highly involved with the WGA, and I texted him what I thought was a nice text saying like, "Hey David, we'd love to have you back on the podcast. You'd be our first ever returning guest to talk about this impending strike." Instantly got an incredibly angry text back.
There is no impending strike. That is what the studios want you to believe. They've spread the word and you're buying it.
And I was just like, okay, I'm sorry.
Awesome.
Never heard back from him. So
We
don't
love
talk
him.
about a strike. It's not happening.
Maybe we should all just do a podcast where we're doing dueling Goodmans talking about what's going to happen. And it's an improv podcast. And it's
also
David
have Goodman
Goodman's
on.
weigh in on the future of the WGA.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he can call in.
Just what we always come up with, ideas with a nice big audience that's going to enjoy them.
All you Goodman fans out there, hang on to your hats.
God forbid
Finally-
the people creating the thing have fun. Let's dumb it down.
Well, Sean, we know you do have to get into your job, your
I wish you
aforementioned
didn't.
job. So we appreciate. I had never met you. It was great meeting you. You're hilarious,
When
as
can you come
Goldie
back?
has said many times, and we thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Yes.
And I'll let
Thank you
Goldie
so
give-
much for having me, guys. Yeah, and hey, man, if Goodman doesn't want to be the first returning guest,
Part 2.
Yeah, there we
let's
go.
call up the kid, brother.
the kid.
I'm 41.
All right.
Oh my
Thank
God,
you,
so
Sean
Yeah,
Clements.
thank you.
God, Goldie, he was so funny. Your friend Sean was
One of my
hilarious.
favorites so
Well,
far.
then cut me out of the equation already and just be friends with him.
I'm
no.
I know that's where
considering
this
it.
is going.
No
Boy,
way.
he
No,
was
I love that guy. He's
Yeah.
incredible.
I can see why. Yeah, he's
very funny, and he's
And
got.
likable.
I know this is mostly an audio experience for our listeners, but he has an absolute devilish smile to him at all times. That just it makes you laugh before he's even said anything.
He might be the funniest in the world. The way he uses it's like a perfect show of contempt for the listener.
I love that. Yeah. And yes,
good at
listeners, I mean, we're so happy you listen to our podcast, but you should definitely listen to his Hollywood Handbook with Hayes Davenport. The two of them are very funny together. And go listen to Goldie's episodes. He was on there a
Yes.
couple times. But now let's get into a portion of the show we like to call Top 5.
Top 5.
Woo!
Oh,
All right.
JC, this was your category this week. Tell us what we're top 5 about.
Top 5 bass lines.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, right. I
Oh.
guess I'm going foist,
You're
right?
going voice.
Okay. So I'm going to take a sip real quick.
Yeah.
I think about that when you did that to Goldie last week. I keep thinking, okay. My number 5. I always go back to this song. Sorry for the redundancy, but this bass line was such a large part of my life. Hysteria by Muse. If you haven't heard it yet, when you listen to it, you'll know that it's an incredible bass line. My number 4 is actually key bass. It is Chameleon by Herbie Hancock. Boom,
Ooh.
boom, boom,
Look at you,
boom, boom,
yeah.
boom, 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 boom. You probably
You're
heard
in
of
the
it,
you're
didn't
in the
even
music
know.
world. You're in the music
Yeah.
world.
I think you've heard it. You just didn't know what it was
Okay.
called. Okay, number 3, Girls and Boys by Blur.
Oh,
You know the
Blur is-
song. Oh my
I
God.
do. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I
Yes.
love Blur.
It's a great one. Really, it's so good. Number 2, Sledgehammer.
Yeah.
I almost put this number 1. It could be number 1, but it is amazing.
Peter Gabriel's?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
this
I'll have to
bass line.
re-listen to that with
Oh,
the
boy.
bass line in mind.
Whew, it's so good. Tony 11 on the bass. And number 1.
Please go to 11.
Have you ever wanted to be someone's sledgehammer? I haven't.
I wanna be. That's pretty good point.
Show me around your fruitcakes.
And my number 1 is Billie Jean.
Yeah, we
Ooh,
got
that's a-
overlap.
Oh, wow. Good job, you two. Overlap on that. I love it. All right, I'll get into my top 5.
Okay.
Number 5 for me is a song by the Pretenders called My City Was Gone.
Oh.
You know that one? It's like AKA Back to Ohio. I went back to Ohio.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
really nice driving
a nice
constant. It's
song.
not very challenging as a bass line, but it's very cool. Here's another not challenging bass line, easy for me to say, but just if you listen to it in car speakers speeding down Route 9 in a
Yes.
Dodge Stealth, it will
Yes.
change your life, which I have done. Led Zeppelin's Dazed and Confused.
Ooh, nice.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And number 3, I sent JC a little sneak preview of
This is
this
good.
week. It's a song from the swing era. Dad, this one's for you. Big Noise from Winnetka.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
Goldie knows
No, I
it.
don't
Sure. No, I know. If you want to listen to it, there are several versions. The one you want to listen to is if you type in Big Noise from Winnetka, Woody Allen. He uses it in Manhattan Murder Mystery. It's fantastic. It's the stand-up bass, swing era. Number 2 from the world of rap. It's a song called Don't Sweat the Technique.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Nice.
what a bass line that has.
Yes.
And it's also stand-up bass.
yeah.
And number 1 for me, we were in I think the same year as Billie Jean, maybe a year earlier. Duran Duran's Rio.
Rio. That was almost made my list.
Oh.
That's really, really
That's a
difficult.
challenging
Yes.
bass line and really good.
Yes.
All right, Goldie, what do you got?
Mine tend to be more iconic than
cool.
you seem to have done more indie choices. Number 5 is Stand By Me.
Wow,
The
that's really
simplicity
good.
of it when you hear
so
it kick in.
memorable too. Yes.
I have a tie for number 4. Total cop out. I don't think I've done it before.
That's
But
okay.
I put these two kind of laterally. The Beastie Boys Sabotage
Oh, how
and
did I
White
miss
Stripes
that?
7 Nation Army.
Oh, that was on my list too. I can't believe I forgot about Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
That's great.
Number 3, The Cure, Just Like Heaven.
That was also
okay.
wow, Goldie.
When you hear it
Dang.
kick in, well, then number 2 was Billie Jean, which you did.
Nice.
And number 1, I just can't believe no one else even mentioned this.
Uh-oh.
Ice Ice Baby
Oh.
/ Under Pressure.
Under pressure.
You
it's
had
on-
2 ties.
Well,
No,
well,
no,
it's a
I'm
similar
just
baseline.
saying it's-
Well, I had in parentheses for my number 5 was Under Pressure, so I had to at the last minute chose Hysteria over Under Pressure. So.
But so
But
you
you're
go
right.
Under Pressure over Another One Bites the Dust in terms of
Yeah,
bass
I don't
line?
like Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah.
I hate that song. I actually once counted, and I think in that song, 23 bite the dust.
And another one down.
It's
Another
not
one.
that many. It's just like the song should be called 23 Bite the Dust.
23 and me.
Yeah.
Bite the Dust.
So it's my turn next week.
It
Yes.
is. What do we get?
I
Yes.
have what I think is, I'm pretty proud of this.
Ooh.
Good.
The top 5 people you thought were super important as a kid that no one cares about now.
Ooh. Wow.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I'm writing
That's
it
like
down.
that reminds me in a great way of your early one of like top 5 things
things
you
you
thought
thought-
were fancy.
This person's not going to be on it for me, but I'll just give you an example.
Okay.
Dan Quayle.
right.
No one cares about Dan Quayle. Never gets
Dan.
mentioned. He was the vice president. He was super important. He did the potato. He spelled it with an E. He fucked up. It was every punchline for about 6 years was Dan Quayle. Is he alive? That no one cares.
I'm happy to report he is alive. And he's running this year. So
He should.
I know. Never a better opportunity. All right. Well, that'll be fun next week. And now let's end the show as we do every week on a high note. Oh, Tom and Max, a little longer than we expect every week. Tom, we miss you, buddy. We know Morty's dead. We know you're sad about that, but we would love
I think
to.
Morty could. There's revolutionary technology. He could be brought back with AI, or they might even bring him back to life.
I wondered if his comment about Morty being dead was just a veiled comment to us, like he's done with us.
Oh, does he hate us now?
No. He's working.
I don't think so. I hope not. But of course, my mind interpreted it in a negative way. Like, oh, you don't want to do more, so you don't want to be on the show anymore. You're not listening.
I hope none of this is the case.
One thing that pissed him off a month ago. That
we
don't
miss
know
you,
what it is.
Tom.
We do.
Yeah.
All right. So quickly, my high note. What else could it be? It's tall, dude.
Yeah, dude, bro, man.
Come on, bro. Of course. Obviously, it's my main chick, dude. We've been having, I would say, a record-setting week. So
that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Happy to hear it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I go second? I feel like I never go second.
I know you always let me go, so you go.
So on top of having my good friend Sean Clements on,
he's great.
But that's a cop-out I've never seen. So about a year ago, my younger kid dropped something on my foot, and my second toenail got very bloody.
Yeah.
And it was at the base of the nail, and I was looking at this bloody toenail for a long, long time. And then it started to come up, the blood started to rise a little bit in the nail, and rise, and it was inching toward the edge of the nail. And this week, I finally cut the bloody tip off my toenail, and I have a regular toenail. I am back to zero. I was so sick of looking at a blood blob on my foot, and it's finally gone, and I'm so happy.
Blood blob. Bye.
As you were saying, you were watching it rise. I was picturing Herb Alpert's Rise that we would play with a time release photo of your toenail. Time lapse would be the way to say that.
Yes,
lapse.
Instead of time release, right? Okay, understood. I have a very simple, also sort of back to zero high note, which is I've been trying to learn how to relax more because I'm really bad at it. And one of the things that I've rediscovered is drinking tea at night. I kind of just stopped doing this, and I've just gone and purchased a bunch of teas. And if anybody has any tea recommendations, I've been purchasing tea, Republic of Tea. That's the brand I'm on right now. But if anybody else has any recommendations, please send them in.
I got a tea recommendation for you. Coffee.
I know. Stu would say the same thing.
If you have any tea suggestions or any other thoughts, please email us at atypicaldisgustingdisplay@gmail.com.
And we have gotten some emails about Basslines, so those did not go unseen.
We thank you for those. Yeah. Those were great suggestions. Although whoever sent them in, I forget who it was. I didn't recognize any. Was that Jeff McInnes? Dave McInnes?
No, Joshua Orion.
I was close.
And then, Greg McInnes. Sorry.
Greg McInnes.
That was about Predator, though.
Oh, right. Yeah, he came at you about Naked Gun.
Right. And
all right. Well, Sean was awesome. We thank you all for listening to him and us. And I thank you two for being awesome. We will talk to you again next week.
Next week.
Disgusting display.
That was fun.
And it stops right now.
23 bite the dust.